Hey everybody, the ground's a lot wetter than I thought it was, but today we're going to be talking about tying pins versus Zen pins in balisongs, since that is something that you guys were interested in. And I wanted to talk about it. So tying pins versus Zen pins comes to the construction of the pivots, essentially. But it's the part of the pivots that allows them to stop. You know, it's what allows you to close the balisong without it smacking into the blade, or open it without the handles slapping together. Tang pins and Zen pins. So I have an example of Tang pins and an example of Zen pins. Both of these lovelies from Squid Industries, of course. Don't know why I said of course, but yeah, those are the ones I have. So Tang pins are little pins here that get pushed into the tang of the blade, which the tang of the blade it's similar to the spine of the blade, but it's below where the cutting edge would be. You know, if you had a fixed blade knife, the tang is the part that would run down into the handle. That's the tang. So down here is the tang of the blade, and that's where these pins are put in. Now these pins are most often press fit, which basically means they take the pin, they cut a hole into the blade, and then they just jam the pin in there, and it's so tight that the pins won't move. Or they could be screwed in, but that's less common. So, you know, those go on the tang of the blade, and then the handles will have little cutouts in them, and those cutouts line up with the tang, and they smack into it, and that's what causes it to stop. Zen pins can be press fit or screwed, just like with Tang pins, but they go into the handles. So you put a hole in the handle, take your pin, shove it in there, and then it doesn't move because it's so tight. If it's press fit. If it's screwed in, they're just screwed in. Sometimes they're not really press fit, they're like glued in place, like in some of Nabali's stuff, in which case they can move if the glue comes undone. But these Zen pins then line up with little divots in the blade. So these divots here are what lines up with these pins. And you get this little Zen nipple, as we call it, where the pins will contact that. So as you can see, it's like a difference between having divots on your blade versus divots in your handles, and pins on the blade and pins in the handles. So that is the big difference. Now, benefits and disadvantages, it's pretty much entirely personal preference. I don't have a personal preference, but most of the community prefers Zen pins. Now, Zen pins are definitely a much cleaner looking design. You don't have any pins in the blade, you get this nice space to put like a logo, it's just very clean, versus having these like pins in the way, and then you have to write your logo on the inside of the channel because of that. So the Zen pins definitely, they have this aesthetic to them that is very pleasing, and that is compounded with the fact that Zen pins offer something that you cannot do with Tang pins, which is hidden Zen pins. So on balisongs that have G10 on the outside, you can have hidden Zen pins. Basically, that way you don't even see the Zen pins. You can only see them if you look into the handle. And that is an even cleaner look, as in the glider Bermuda. So that is the biggest benefit to Zen pins as opposed to Tang pins. There's also going to be differences in sound. These aren't really good to compare because this has G10, this doesn't. I can compare it to the Bermuda, but this is on bearings, this is on bushings. And you know, this is sandwich, this is channel. Not good comparisons, but it is going to have an effect on the sound, so that is something that you could be looking out for. It's really not going to have a big impact on the flipping in terms of how the balisong flips. The biggest things to keep in mind, I would say Tang pins probably it's possible that they would have a greater likelihood to develop handle slap and for the handle gap to go away, because this is usually a steel pin contacting aluminum handles, and anytime you have two metals that are hitting each other and they're different metals, whichever one is stronger is going to win. So aluminum is softer than steel, so in theory over time this handle gap will get smaller and smaller, which that is exactly what happens to Nautiluses. They come up from the squid like this. They have a handle gap that's like crazy like that, but then over time it gets shrunk. But it's not really a big issue because I've had mine for over a year and flip it daily, and that's still a perfectly reasonable handle gap. So I wouldn't really consider it an issue, but it is something to keep in mind that could happen over time. Zen pins are steel pins on a steel blade. So in theory, the handle gap should never change, which is another benefit to Zen pins. And when you look at it like this, you can really see why the community prefers Zen pins. They have a lot of advantages that Tang pins don't have. And those are really the biggest differences, is that Zen pins have some advantages over Tang pins, and not really the other way around. I think Tang pins might be easier to manufacture and cheaper. Don't quote me on that, but I believe they are. But that's really the only benefit they have. There's also pinless balisong designs where there are no pins and the handles just hit the blade directly. Those have the same issue where the handle gap will just go away unless the handles are the same material as the blade, like the swordfish or the canyon, the Nautilus canyon, because both of those balisongs are the same material, so the handle gap should be fine. But that is kind of the gist when it comes to pin designs and pinless. You know, you have Tang pins, you got Zen pins. That's the difference. Please subscribe if you watched till the end, because there's a lot of you that watch every single video and are not subscribed. It's like 500 people. So please subscribe. If you have any video ideas, leave them in the comments below. I look at all those. And until next time, I hope you all had a wonderful day, and I hope that you will all keep flipping.